I am Ryan, the Life Changer, and I am so grateful that you decided to join me today. This podcast is called Unlock the Power of Your Mind. Let me ask you a question. Are you ready for your life to change? Are you ready to unlock the power of your mind? Are you ready to be the best version of you possible? I want to help you. I want this podcast to give new, positive meanings to the difficult times that you faced in your life. And I want to help you become the best version of you possible. This is your time. The change is happening for you now. I know you're ready. Let's help today to change your life. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining me for another episode of Unlock the Power of Your Mind. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a guest with me today who is going to provide you some life-changing information about your body, about how to fix your gut and gut health, how important it is, and his story is incredible. So I'm very excited to have with me today Dr. Larry Martin. He is a doctor, got his doctorate from the University of Florida. He also has his expertise in homeopathic and holistic medicine. And he is an expert in cell function and epigenetics. So, Dr. Martin, I'm so excited to have you on. How are you today, my friend?
I'm very good, and pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much for your time. I know that this is going to be some life-changing information for all of the listeners out there. I think we're starting to just really begin to dive into and understand how important gut health is as it relates to the human body. And so for all the listeners, I want you to know that this information that you're going to get today from Dr. Martin is cutting edge. What he's going to share with you is going to really open up your eyes to just how important it is for us to have a healthy gut as well as the expressions of our genes. So, Dr. Martin, if you could first share with the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you ended up getting into the field of health and wellness.
Well, I'd be happy to. I spent most of my career as a doctor of audiology, so I worked with hearing and balance disorders. I worked with pediatrics. I also did a lot of neuro work, balance disorders, worked with neurosurgery teams in the OR doing interruptive monitoring. And out of the blue, was out to dinner with my wife one night, and on the way home, we got stopped at a light, and a drunk driver came up from behind us and hit our vehicle without ever hitting the brakes. And that particular accident irritated my spine so badly they had to put me on the board. They thought my back was actually broken from the accident, and took me in. And that incident took me out of my clinical practice overnight. I had about a 5.5-year recovery period, trying to get the nerves settled down to where I could be in a state of manageable pain. And during that time, I'm not a person that can sit idle well. And I was able to find a course program in homeopathic and holistic medicine. Decided, since I was mostly just sitting in a recliner trying to recover, I spent almost 2 years going through the holistic medicine training. And that took me on a new pathway, because it wasn't feasible that I could go back and restart another clinical practice in the field of audiology. So I started doing research work looking at cell function and trying to find ways that I could heal my personal health, my body, quicker and better in a nutritional approach. And so that really started my pathway in my love of understanding cell function and what we can do individually with nutrition and with supplementation products.
You know, what I think is incredible, Dr. Martin, is how you were able to take that time of your life, which of course you're in a lot of pain and discomfort. It knocks you out of your normal routine, and in your case, took you away from your practice. but yet something so beautiful came out of it because now you're in the field that you're in now. So as you were starting to dive into more of the homeopathic and holistic medicine through that course and gaining your expertise there, what would you say was the biggest difference between what you learned in that field versus while you were getting your doctorate at the University of Florida, kind of Eastern versus Western type medicine?
Well, everything changes, because when you look at a Western medicine approach, everything is we identify the problem and we're trying to fix the problem. Western medicine wise at the end of the story. Whereas when you look at health issues on a holistic or homeopathic approach, you want to find the root of the problem. You want to go back to what created the outcome, not trying to fix the outcome, but try to fix what created the outcome. And so you're looking at things from everything ends up from a nutritional aspect. What is wrong with our system, and it always breaks down to the very smallest denominator. And in this case, it breaks down to your gene expressions. Is there something changing there, or can we make a change there that can make that outcome different than what it is? And that's really what I think excited me, is that there was more to the story than just the outcome. There's a history of what created that outcome, and we can do something about that if we can address the nutritional aspect of how our body is functioning.
And so when we talk about nutrition and how it affects our body, share with the listeners what the term epigenetics mean. I think that's a term that probably 4 or 5 years ago, very, very few people have heard of, but they've either heard of it now or they certainly will in the near future. What does epigenetics mean exactly?
Well, we look at epigenetics as what is the genes in our DNA are doing. Each of them have what we call an expression, and these chemical expressions, if you will, that are being released is the building block of our body. It's what gives directions to the heart to function, gives directions to the brain. All of these chemicals are what the body's vital organs require to be able to have them functioning at the level they can. Our autoimmune system is all built around a specific group of genes that those expressions, either up or down regulated, will provide the antioxidants our body needs to defend off diseases. And what happens with the aging process is that the body's ability to change, to offer these expressions are slowing down. And so in slowing down, then thus so does the rest of the body. Heart disease starts occurring, diabetes starts occurring, brain-level diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's are starting to produce. And it's all because something in the upline is not functioning at the level where it needs to be. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So in other words, if the genes are not expressing themselves properly for normal function or kind of a homeostasis within the body, if there is something outside that affects the expressions of those genes, it is then going to put the body in a susceptible state to disease. Would you say that kind of summarizes it?
Absolutely. And what then occurs is you get maybe a morph of a gene that turns into cancer, or a morph of a gene that turns into heart disease, or turns into diabetes, or brain-level neurological disorders. And epigenetics simply suggests that if those genes can be changed to a negative, then they theoretically we should be able to change them back to a positive. And that's where the nutritional balance starts coming into play, to be able to get that system, the orchestra, if you will, playing the music at the level where it did when we were 10 or 12 or 14 years of age, so that the body's better able to defend against those pathologies.
Love it. And so let's dive into splitting that in the middle and talking about first the negative expression. So what would cause in the human body, what would cause those genes to begin to express themselves in a negative way or counterintuitive to what would be best for the body?
Well, that's a great question. And that's really where I started my journey. I guess I started out right after the car accident. I'm a prolific reader. I love reading medical journals. People may sit down and read Harry Potter or another group of novels. I sit down and read a few dozen medical journal studies, research. That's my interest. And so I started reviewing studies and started to connect that there was this thing called oxidative stress. And it was very clear as I was reviewing these studies that these diseases are being triggered by oxidative stress. And so where does that come from? Well, oxidative stress can be anything that we may be breathing. So if we're downtown LA, you're breathing in all the toxins from the cars and the factories. If you're swimming in a river or lake, your skin is absorbing all of any kind of toxins that might be available there. We know getting too much sunlight, having our skin burned, lying on the beach causes oxidative stress damage to the skin. So it's everything we eat. And it's everything what we eat may eat. So the cows that we eat, what they eat, the fish that we eat, what they eat, and all the negative stuff that might be absorbed into their bodies, we're absorbing into ours as well. And so if you're eating a cow raised in a factory that raises cows, they're loaded up with antibiotics and other hormones to get them to grow faster. Well, your body's absorbing those. All of those are negative effects that are we consider oxidative stress that can cause the damage to the cell all the way down to the genome level, these DNA genes.
And so let's dive into now the other part, and I know that you had touched on it before with nutrition. So how then can we recorrect this? I guess we could almost break it down to say as simple: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if we know that certain things can cause the genes to be expressed negatively, we also must be able to do things to reverse that. Besides proper nutrition, and we'll dive into that more extensively, what else can we do for a more positive expression of our genes?
Well, certainly exposure is the big thing. We really have to, in our country and even really worldwide, get to a point where we understand how important it is what we put into our body. I mean, running down to 7-Eleven and buying a big gulp and a candy bar is not what our bodies were designed to function on. We have fast food, stations 2 or 3 on every corner of every block, and it's easy to just pull in and grab a burger or whatever they're manufacturing and gulp that down because it accomplishes what we need. We're hungry, we eat, we're not hungry. Our bodies are fine-tuned engines, and they were designed to run on specific ingredients. And unfortunately, our society is taking away so many of those ingredients that we're becoming a very unhealthy society. And this is epidemic worldwide now. So really, it's coming down to really needing to look at what we eat. The cleaner we eat, as far as food-wise, the cleaner the water that we're consuming and bathing in. All of this is factors to be able to live a healthier and longer, healthier life.
Awesome. And so now let's dive into gut health, which of course is an important part of nutrition, because even if we're eating the most healthy things, if our gut or somewhat healthy diet, if our gut health is off and we're not able to absorb the nutrients properly, or there's some disconnect there in our gut, it can be all for naught. So what does gut health mean to you, kind of in a simplistic version for the listeners?
Well, again, a great question, because this is, I mentioned just briefly that I had done some research and looking at oxidative stress and was finding ways to reduce oxidative stress through supplementation. And I was really focused on putting out that particular fire. And the more research I did, the more I'm exposed to other researchers and the work they're doing, the more it led me to focus on what these folks were doing at the gut level. And it dawned on me that through these conversations that I better understand that process better, because I'm up here trying to put out a house fire with a garden hose when the bulk of the fire is being generated down in the gut. And so we really have to start out with healing the gut and getting it to the point where it's functioning at the level that it's designed to function. Because the researchers and the medical people who work with gut-related health understand that they can pull off almost anybody off the street and run a test and find that their gut health is not in good shape. And I've had researchers tell me that I could pick anybody and run tests on them and tell them that their gut system is just not working at the levels that it's required to be able to give us a healthy system. So we really have to start there first. And the biggest buzzword that everybody is using is leaky gut syndrome. And that really is a good place to start. How do we eliminate that? How do we make changes there?
Great. And so and that makes sense. Before we talk about fixing or correcting, before we talk about correcting something, we have to make sure that what the basis of what we're working with is functioning effectively. So how can we work on correcting? Is there certain supplements that we should take? Is there a certain food pattern that we should eat over a period of time to kind of reset ourselves? How do we get back to, ground zero, so to speak?
Well, the purists that work with the vegan type of diets would suggest that a good, clean vegetable diet is a great place to start. I'm not a vegan. I certainly appreciate the benefits that vegetables are providing, fruits and vegetables are to overall health, but that certainly is a place to start. And the area that I have been really looking at closely is how do we heal those cells that line the gut wall? Because really that's where everything starts. I mean, you need to put in the good nutrition into the gut system to be able to absorb all the nutrients that those products are providing for the body. But if those cells are not healthy, if you do have a leaky gut, which I can tell you most people, whether they know it or not, have some difficulty with that aspect. If you can't heal those cells that are protecting that lining, and that lining is where the nutrients are going through to be able to be absorbed and put into the blood system to provide the body with its nourishment throughout, then you're getting a lot of garbage that is going through that filtering mechanism that gets into the bloodstream and then causes upline difficulties, which causes the heart disease, causes the neurological disorders and skin diseases as well. So you really have to start there. And so what's out there that does the best? Well, what I've found is research dealing with a product called butyric acid. Well, butyric acid is a short-chain fatty acid. And when you look at the science behind these particular cells, they actually feed on short-chain fatty acids. And there's 4 or 5 of them that our food bases will provide to these cells to feed off from. But 70% of what they require is butyric acid. So if you want to reverse gut health issues very rapidly, then you need to find a way to supplement and bring up the intake of butyric acid. Butyric acid is naturally produced in the gut biome, and it's produced because of the foods we're eating. However, as I mentioned earlier, our diets have changed so dramatically that we're not eating the foods that can generate the butyric acid. And so the fact that we are not providing enough growth of butyric acid in the system these cells are becoming unhealthy because they're not getting the nourishment they require to provide that protection against bacteria and stuff getting into the bloodstream through that leaky gut syndrome, if you will.
So the butyric acid, and that's coming from the natural source of where we would get it from in our diet is from fiber, correct? As the fiber starts to ferment?
Absolutely. That's the bulk of where butyric acid is generated. It all comes from butter and milk produce some butyric acid for the body as well.
And so to kind of give the listeners a little bit of a streamline. So if we don't have either the fiber that's fermenting or we don't have the other things from our diet that's giving our body the butyric acid, our body won't have the short chain fatty acids that it needs, which is going to help give the energies to the cell. Do I have it right so far?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And then as these cells don't have the energy that they need to function properly, they are going to, of course, start to function at a lower level. And if these are the cells that are in our microbiome and are important for breaking down the food, and then, of course, determining what goes in and out of our gut, there's going to be some things that we don't want getting out that get out, and there's going to be some food inside that's not going to get broken down to release the nutrients that we want. Does that kind of complete the cycle?
That's exactly right. And then you look at that leaky gut syndrome. Well, that's an inflation-based disease process, and that inflammation then is causing the antioxidants to be used up trying to put out that fire. And if you have genes that are not expressing enough antioxidant expression to be able to put out that fire and any others, say you bump your elbow, well, there's inflammation that's going to be generated from that injury. You have to be able to keep the big fires at a minimum. And certainly by keeping the gut healthy is going to be the start, because then the nutrients that you want the rest of the body to have are going to be absorbed cleaner and better, and will provide the support upline nutrition that the body requires.
And so I love the name of the product, Link, and I want to talk about that. But before we do, I'd like to talk about the, as you say, the link between the second brain, which is known as our gut, and then of course the first brain, which is what everybody thinks about, the thing that's on that's in our head, right, protected by our skull. So talk about the link between the two brains of the body, if you would, please.
Sure. And that's, the research in this area of gut biome being the second brain and the connection to the rest of the body. These studies are just prolific right now. They're almost daily. You can download somebody's new peer-reviewed journal study that talks about the gut biome, and almost daily or weekly we're finding new bacteria that's being identified within the gut biome that has important roles in how it controls function upstream in the body in different areas. But the primary connection between the biome and the brain is called the enteric nervous system. And that really gets the gut biome to be able to communicate to the brain and to other organs as well, how to function, or what gene expressions need to be released for these organs to continue to remain healthy. And if we're not functioning well at the gut biome, that's our computer system, if you will, the circuit board that is running much of what the brain has to do. And so the two of them are very vital to operate effectively together. And the one place that gets damaged the quickest and the fastest is unfortunately in the gut region, and how we care for the gut biome. Our garden is also another term used. How well that garden is how healthy that garden is in producing the biome necessary to keep the rest of it connected. There's journal studies coming out that is talking about there may be similar enteric nervous system connections from the biome to places like the liver. There's a couple studies out now that suggest that the biome controls the fatty liver diseases that often occur even in absence of alcohol use. And if gut biome is functioning properly, that we should be able to, again, that term epigenetically, change the outcome of that fatty liver disease. And I believe that we're going to eventually hear those same kind of studies talking about how there's a direct enteric nervous system connection to our skin and to our kidneys and to our heart and to our lungs. What we know, which is going on in the gut biome, is just, as I said, is exploding with new research almost every day. So just back to the point we're making here today, how important it is for us to get that gut system healthy and operating at the level it needs to.
So it's almost kind of like if we have a straw going from whatever it is that we're drinking, maybe it's a delicious vanilla milkshake or a chocolate milkshake, and we want to then have the other part of the straw going to our mouth. It doesn't matter how delicious the milkshake is, if there's a hole in the straw, the milkshake isn't going to be able to get delivered to our mouth. And I know that's very, very simplistic, but I want to kind of paint the picture for the listeners of what you're saying, Dr. Martin, which is it's an information conduit that's running up and down from the brain to the gut biome. And if there is any kind of breakdown of the flow of information between the two, going to cause some havoc in our body. And from an epigenetic level, there's going to be some expressions and some messages that aren't going to get to where they need to get to. Would you say that's correct?
No, that's absolutely correct. And so when you think about keeping that system healthy is going to keep those upline switches operating at the capacity they need to. But then also think about what are people trying to do to be healthy right now? What are you putting into your system that you believe if you take this particular supplement product is going to somehow be beneficial, maybe to brain health or to heart health or to something else? If that nutritional system in the gut is not functioning well, how well is the efficacy of the product that you're trying to take to make yourself better actually working? In other words, is it being absorbed at the full efficiency that it needs to be able to offer the benefits that the manufacturer of that product believes you should be able to obtain? Well, if your gut system is not absorbing that product because it's not healthy, then it doesn't matter how great that product is, it may not be giving you as much benefit as it could if you put that gut system back into a healthy state.
Absolutely. So let's dive into Link. And I know that there's some cutting edge delivery technologies with this product. So share with the listeners Link and what makes this different from some of the other products on the market.
Well, first of all, anybody that is familiar with butyric acid knows it, will always remember it, because butyric acid on its own has a horrible odor to it. It smells like vomit. It's that bad. And so there are products on the market that you can go to eBay or Amazon or somewhere and order butyric acid. But as soon as you open the bottle, the stench that comes from it is pretty offensive, and so people don't take it. They think, well, they may hear a study that says butyric acid's great. Okay, I'll order this. I'm going to take it, and after a few trials, they just can't tolerate and won't take it any longer. So that's one issue with butyric acid. The second issue, like many sensitive herbs that we would like to be taking, many of us aren't aware that these herbs are very sensitive to stomach acid. And butyric acid is no different. Once you get it into the stomach, that acid has a tendency to degrade what you're trying to get to the gut. before it even gets there. So again, going back to my comments about the efficacy of the product, how much of it is it actually getting to where you want it to get to be able to be effective at doing what you want that product to do. So butyric acid is no different. It's hard to get a healthy dose, a pure dose to the gut where it actually has to be utilized. The Link product, which is unique to it to any other product on the market today, is that it's got a patent pending encapsulation process. So I want to talk a little bit about encapsulation because that's not a new term. There are lots of encapsulation products on the market, but most of them are encapsulated with a coating that coats the entire formulation. So if you need 100 milligrams of a product, the whole product is encapsulated with some sort of substance, and we hope that that substance is going to hold it together long enough to get the full dose to where you want it to arrive, and then it's released at that stage. But we know from research that doesn't always happen. Some people's stomach acid is stronger, will burn through that encapsulation and then damage the dosage to some degree before it arrives. And some are so weak that it goes all the way through the system and right back out the other end without really opening up and allowing the product to be released. So talking about Link specifically, this is a patent pending process that is new to the supplementation market, that it actually takes the product and breaks it down to a molecular level. And now each molecule is encapsulated in a glycerol, plant-based glycerol coating that is strong enough to get past the stomach acid. It is actually a food base for the microbiome. And so when it arrives at the gut to that microbiome region, then that casing is eaten off by the microbiome as a food source, and then the product is released and becomes essentially a food source for the cells that line the gut lining, making them healthy. So now the butyric acid is released. Secondly, uniquely different with our Link product is it has 3 prebiotics. Now, I didn't say probiotics, I said prebiotics. Well, prebiotics are known to increase the healthiness of the garden, of the microbiome. So we're actually putting a lunch in for both the microbiome and the butyric acid, because these 3 prebiotics are also ingredients that promote the growth of more butyric acid to be produced in the gut system. So it's kind of a twofold thing. It's the formulation, which allows the prebiotics that induces a healthier garden and production of more butyric acid. And it's also the fact that it's encapsulated at that molecular level to allow a full pure dose. And you've heard the term, I think many of your listeners have, bioavailability. This promotes the fact that we have the most bioavailability of any product, so our efficacy is incredible with this particular product.
Yeah, because from my understanding, it typically, I don't know how accurate this is, but typically for most vitamins, the oral bioavailability is about 35%. Would you say that that's on average accurate?
I think that's a very accurate number, yes.
Yeah, so you can imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if we're taking something that we want to help to improve our body, but we're only taking, our body is only able to process on average about 35% as normal bioavailability, it's going to be difficult for the product to work at maximum efficiency or effectiveness when we're only absorbing that small amount. But with a product like Link, based on the delivery system, much more of it is going to get to where it needs to go. And then I love the idea of almost kind of layering with what the body is going to use it for and need it for once it gets into the microbiome.
Exactly.
Dr. Martin, I really appreciate your expertise on this topic. And I think that, as you had stated, it's almost like every day now we're coming out with new studies. We're getting exposed to new information. I think they say something like 70% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. and now we're talking about how it interacts with the liver and other different organs. I mean, it's truly incredible just how powerful the microbiome is, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And healing the gut system, the amount of disease processes that we know are going to change, going back to that epigenetic phrase again, is going to change once we heal that gut system. I mean, your readers are those that are the science nerds like myself, can do a simple PubMed, pubmed.gov, and can type in butyric acid and look at the amount of research. There's over 80,000 peer-reviewed journal studies that are looking at disease processes that butyric acid is good for. And I know that I wish I could tell you what university or what group is doing it, but there is someone out there working with our particular Link product, looking at autism. There are certain aspects of autism that is triggered because of gut biome dysfunction. And that butyric acid, there's a number of studies out there published right now that suggest that butyric acid has some health benefits to some cases of autism. And that's just one. I'm only saying that out of interest, but there are many disease processes and studies that talk about them. I reviewed one study recently that the author suggests that butyric acid should be considered a treatment option for colon cancer, because they were seeing such dramatic changes in the cancer reaction to an increase in butyric acid in the system. So there's lots to learn now that we have a product that's available that really gets a full dose of butyric acid into the system.
Absolutely. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that the next time your stomach is bothering you, or the next time you feel like, hey, man, for some reason my stomach just feels a little bloated, or man, I ate this and I feel a little bit off today, I want you to really take a step back and think about, just how important the importance of a microbiome is, of gut health, of what it is that we eat. Is our body able to break it down? Do we have certain food allergies? And also, is what we're doing, taking supplements or, whatever the case may be to get ourselves healthy, is our body even able to break it down or optimize it? So, Dr. Martin, thank you so much for your time today and sharing all of your expertise. If the listeners are interested in trying the Link product or purchasing it, where can they go to learn more and to get a bottle for themselves?
They can go to my website, which is just Dr. Larry Martin, all lowercase, .actives, ACTIVZ as in zebra.com. And they can get more information there. I think there's a link that they can ask me any questions as well. Just send me an email, and I respond to any questions that somebody might have.
Awesome. And so for the listeners, it is spelled L-I-N-Q, pronounced Link, but spelled L-I-N-Q. So Dr. Martin, thank you so very much for your time today. Thank you for sharing all of your expertise. And I know you're working on some other cutting edge stuff with turmeric and some delivery systems there. So when that product launches, we'll have to have you on again.
I would love to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Martin. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this podcast today. My prayer is that it has helped to change your life, to make a positive impact in your life. And I just want to let you know that every single day, the first goal that I write down is I have changed 1 million lives. So ladies and gentlemen, if this podcast helped to change your life today, I would ask you to please go on to iTunes, rate, review, and share this episode with somebody else who you know will benefit and have their life changed. Thank you again so very much. It means the world to me. Go out there and be great today. Make a positive impact in the world.